but not the power of this institution. That power is shared by us all, by every one of you, and more so our main responsibility of responding to the needs of the people and respecting their will.
We're given the freedom na lumayo sa partisanship. So kung tama ang panukala ng ating Pangulo o programa ng ating Pangulo, we can freely support. Kapag kamali, we can also freely criticize.
Senate Minority members Risa Ontiveros and Coco Pimentel said that the first State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos failed to tackle some issues.
The State of the Nation is sound. Saan nanggagaling ang kumpiyansa na may sound State of the Nation ngayon? Kung mataas ang bilang ng gutom, mahirap, at walang trabaho. Sound para sa iilan, pero hindi sa lahat. Masyado namang pinangunahan ang panahon.
The new administration has set its legislative and economic agenda. Can government muster enough support and funding to get plans and programs off the ground? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to The Chiefs. Ako po si Roby Alampay. Kasama po natin from Quezon City, Luchi Cruz-Valdes of News 5. And maya-maya po sasamahan din tayo ni Pamintuan of the Philippine Star. Luchi, happy Thursday.
Hi, Roby. Yes, happy Thursday.
Ano bang mga balitang na monitor mo ngayon?
Well, abra pa rin. The president was there. And he has declared a state of calamity. Tsaka 887 aftershocks. Baka doon nadagdagan na. So, while we're speaking.
But the good news is mukhang nakakaabot naman yung mga relief and rescue efforts.
Yes.
Yun nga lang. The bad news is na sa laki-laki ng problema natin, meron pang dadagdag na mga fake news, mga kumakalat na, some people panicked yesterday na magkakaroon daw ng flood. Pagkatapos some people were led astray and a wild chase for money that was not there. Sana naman po lahat tayo magtulong-tulong. Right now in a situation like this, syempre good information is very important. Bad information, we never need that. Anyway, speaking,
I totally agree.
Speaking of good information, we're in for a good conversation now. Our first guest to talk about the state of the nation. Tuloy natin yung usapan sa state of the nation. And our first guest tonight is the new Senate President, Senator Miguel Zubiri. SP Zubiri, welcome to the Chiefs.
Good evening.
Good evening, Robbie. Good evening, Ma'am Amy and Ma'am Luchi. Lahat po ng taga-subaybay ng programa nyo, magandang gabi po. Good evening. Good evening.
Sir, umpisa natin doon. State of the Nation address. Ano bang reaction nyo? What's your take on the SONA?
Well, guys, what did he miss out? He pretty much covered a lot of ground in his 1 hour 10 or 1 hour 15 minute speech. I was pleasantly surprised how he started it off. Macroeconomic figures, yung gusto niya mangyari, 6.8 to 8% GDP growth rate, single-digit poverty rates, yung itaas yung income ng ating mga kababayan, become a middle income class nation in the next 6 years. And pagkatapos ng 10-minute macroeconomic I'd say lesson na binigay niya sa atin lahat, sa loob-loob ko, okay, how is he going to do it? Then he laid it out. Sabi niya, ito, sound fiscal management, ang sinasabi niya, we have to invest into agriculture, strengthening the value chain, coordination. Guys, during the whole State of the Nation address, sinusulat ko, I'm writing down notes. I have 11 pages of notes that I wrote down. I don't usually write that much notes during the SONA. because in the last 6 zonas, we all know that the topic was mostly about drugs, and peace and order, and then drugs again. So this time we were able to come out refreshingly so with these new ideas coming from this president. I was very, very happy with the State of the Nation address. At least nalatag niya pati edukasyon, digital framework of government, e-governance, and all sorts of ideas from our president. And then he ends it with a 19-point agenda for the legislature. He's asking for 19 bills. Ngayon lang po ako nakaranas out of my 20 State of the Nation addresses that I have attended, kung saan hiningi po ng Pangulo itong ganito karaming, no? This plenty in one go. Usually they ask for about 4 or 5, the most 6. They mention what they want and why they want it. But this one, the president asked for 19 measures to make our country even greater than it is now. So we got the message, kaya panay fist bump namin ni Martin kasi sabi namin ni Martin dun sa podium, ang dami nating gagawin. We have a lot of work to do and we'll buckle down to work and make it happen.
We would like to go through those 19
Measures.
one by one. Sorry, I was losing it. We would like to go through them one by one, but there's just not enough time. So let me just ask you, what kind of a budget are we seeing with these 19 priority measures? Moving into the next year, it's the first year. And where are we going to get the funding for these programs?
Well, most of the 19 measures are revenue or spending neutral. They're not really going to cost a lot of money. For example, the right sizing measure, government right sizing, the number one bill he mentioned is right sizing. It's right sizing, not downsizing. I had a discussion with Secretary Mina Pangandaman the other day, and she was saying, we're not going to collapse, we're not going to abolish certain offices. We're going to merge them. We're going to merge them para mawala na rin yung MOEs nila, yung mga what you call this, their budgets will go down because obviously you only maintain the personnel services. For example, she mentioned a couple of departments, which I'm not at liberty to say at this point in time because you don't want to create a panic, where you can put the departments together because there's duplicity in their function already as of today. She was talking about GOCCs, which no longer function. They're no longer are important or relevant. And these are 30-year-old, 40-year-old GOCCs. So those are good ideas. And we can save money from that. We can save a lot of money from that. Second, he talked about the budget modernization bill on modernizing our budget expenditure, how we spend the budget. He wants to do cash-based budgeting, and these are all being done now. But the president wants to institutionalize it. Of course, he talks about the tax package 3. When people hear tax package 3, buwis na naman.
Yes.
But what he really wanted to do with the tax package 3, it's coming up with real property standards, real property tax standards. Because some cities mababa yung real property collection nila, other cities ay mataas, which makes no sense. They have to come up with a standard rate for urbanized, rural, etc., etc. So he also wants to come up with a database, establishment of a database for these real property valuations. Then he talks about Passive Income Package Act and yung e-commerce. I think we have an opportunity. This may be, of course, in the beginning, unpopular, guys. But the E-Commerce Act, we're probably one of the few countries in Southeast Asia, except maybe for the smaller countries. Malaysia, they already have an E-Commerce Act. Indonesia, they have one too. Singapore, lalo na, and the first world countries. Because in the advent of the COVID pandemic, people shifted their buying,
selling.
I'd say, they shifted their mode of buying from the mall to online and at-home buying. So they no longer go out to buy. In the malls, when you buy something, automatic may 12% VAT niya. whatever you do, you go to SM, you go to Robinsons, pag may binili ka doon ng produkto, whatever it may be, pag may 12% VAT. There's now a phenomenon that's online, wala nang VAT. So, ang nangyari, bumagsak ang income ng gobyerno because people started going online. And what the government wants to do is monitor this. And I think it's but proper to a certain extent that we look into this and also start looking at possible income. You know, Congressman Joey Concepcion had mentioned the potential income for this is about 20 to 30 billion pesos a year on income and revenue generation for government. So it's quite important. And of course, I think what will be minimal cost is the setting up of the Centers for Disease Control and the Virology Institute, which I think are also two important agencies of government, considering that there are more pandemics all around the world. We've got monkeypox, and we still have COVID-19. Hopefully, the Virology Institute can come up with our own homemade vaccines to fight this. That's the whole idea about it. And of course, he talked about the unified system of retirement pensions. We need to do that. We have to come up with a pension system for the armed forces, because right now we are apportioning a part of our national budget to pay for the pension of soldiers more than active members. So what we're doing now is, instead of a large chunk of our budget in the armed forces goes now to pensioners rather than active service. So we have to find a way, unlike the GSIS, like the SSS we're in, they can invest their funds carefully, efficiently, effectively, and it will earn money for them so that it will be a standalone agency like the GSIS and SSS, which will no longer require government infusion from the national budget. And many others, the Land Use Act, National Defense Act, they discuss also mandatory ROTC, amendments to the IPIRA law to bring down the cost of electricity. That's a great idea. And he talks about the amendments of the BOT law, which makes it, streamlines it further to allow more PPPs to come in and participate. So obviously the focus of this government now is trying to put in more investors into the Philippines, more private investors.
Senator, today nag-meeting din si President Marcos with his legal experts, no? And some other legal experts from outside this government to discuss the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. Ngayon, pupunta yun sa inyo sa Senate. Kayo magdedesisyon if we will return to the Rome Statute. Are you going to discuss this issue, considering na pinag-uusapan na ngayon in the executive branch?
I have to admit, I'm not a lawyer. Of course, we'll be waiting the decision of the DOJ on this. Yes, we are the branch of government, particularly the legislative branch of government, that deals with treaties, ratifies treaties under the Constitution. However, the treaties are brought to us by government. So the executive department brings it to us for ratification. So we do not ratify anything that is not brought to us and endorsed by the Department of Foreign Affairs, the DFA, as well as the executive branch. So there's really nothing much to act on this issue, and we'll just await what the executive branch will do. It's not our job at this point in time to come up with recommendations on the ICC report.
Yes, but on that point, Senator, you're right, no? The executive, I mean, the president in particular, has to bring a treaty to your attention, and then you will have to ratify. But under the Duterte administration, a principle and a question was in fact raised on whether or not retreating from a treaty can then unilaterally be carried out by the executive. Where do you stand on that? Because it seems like a crucial question that was opened up and basically practiced and demonstrated by President Duterte. But that leaves a question, therefore, to the Congress, if not the future legislators, on is that a dilemma that Congress, in fact, going to your duty, is that something that you will have to confront?
I was one, Robbie, I was one of those petitioners, being the majority floor leader of the last Congress, to the Supreme Court, asking the Supreme Court to comment, particularly on the executive branch abrogating a particular treaty on its own. In other words, leaving a treaty after we ratified it. That they can unilaterally leave a treaty after the Senate ratified it. I believe that the Supreme Court had come up with the decision. And I do not have the decision of the Supreme Court. If you told me earlier, then I would have been prepared for that. But I do not want to second guess what the Supreme Court said on that particular issue. But on a personal note, since the Senate does ratify it with a 2/3 vote, obviously, we feel that it should come back to us if there is and the reason why this was brought up was because of the visiting forces agreement issue. Because the visiting forces agreement was ratified by the Senate on a 2/3 vote. And therefore, we felt that the president alone could not just say, we'll just throw out the visiting forces agreement out the window and let us not respect, the vote done by the Senate, which was recommended by the executive branch in the first place. So, on a personal note, yes, if we do abrogate a particular treaty, it has to go through. I feel it should go back to the Senate for action. But whatever the treaty may be, we'll know in the future.
Okay, going back to the SONA. Go ahead, Ami. Do you have a follow-up on that?
No, ihabol ko lang yung kasi kanina rin dun sa ABRA, yung another issue, tatanong ko lang if the Senate will still pursue the creation of a Department of Disaster Resilience. Kasi mukhang ayaw na ni President Marcos eh. I mean, he
On the
agreed with
suggestion of Senator Aimee.
Senator Aimee na limang undersecretary pa yan at marami pang assistant secretary madadagdag eh. May pag-asa pa kaya yun na will the Senate still push through with the proposal?
Ako, Ma'am Amy, to be honest, I'm a principal author of that measure, the creation of the Department of Disaster Resilience. I with the Red Cross, I've been a Red Cross volunteer for over 25 years now. And I feel that there's really a lack of coordination with the NDRRMC. That's what it is. It's 40 different organizations being harmoniously coordinated with by one person. It's next to impossible to achieve. Kaya always, ang nangyayari, naiiwan talaga yung local government sa pag-aayos ng sitwasyon. This is what happened in Typhoon Odette. I went to all the provinces hit by Typhoon Odette, and the number one complaint of the people on the ground is, where are the rescuers? Where are the relief goods? What happened? Where are all the those who are going to help rehabilitate these particular areas? A problem until this day on the rebuilding of these particular localities. So, having a Department of Disaster Resilience would have been ideal because then may isang go-to guy tayo, meron tayong accountability. In other words, tututukan niya yan. Yan lang ang trabaho niya. Kasi kung tatanungin mo yung DSWD, maraming problema ang DSWD. The DSWD is not just focused on calamity response and rescue and rehabilitation. Focus of DSWD is on issues on abused women, abused children. They talk about all sorts, they have, their mandate is so wide. So, hindi nila pwedeng tutukan lang yung mga natamaan ng typhoon Odette. They have to take care of other areas not hit by a particular typhoon. So, dapat meron talaga tayong ahensya. I think what the President said he had a briefing in Malacanang, and he mentioned that it's acceptable to an idea of having a department or another organization, a stronger organization for disaster resilience and management. Gusto niya mas malakas, patibayin ang of course itong ahensyang ito. I'm all for that, and maybe we can do it that way. That's another way of I guess strengthening whatever needs to be done. We need to strengthen our disaster rescue response.
Hindi ba sa Senate nga, it hit a snag in the Senate? Actually, pasado na yan sa House eh. sa Senate bumagal, no? So ngayon naman baligtad na because Speaker Martin Romualdez now supports, putting the disaster resilience under the office of the president. So mag-uusap na naman kayo yan. Will the ball be? Will we be back in square one?
No, man. Actually, I work very well with the Speaker Martin. He's a very close friend of mine. Pareho po kaming naging majority leader. Ang nangyari sa Senado, kaya naipit po yan, Ma'am Luchi, was basically Senator Ping Lacson also did not agree to create a department. He came out only with an organization, similar to what the President wants as well for this particular bill. So we'll revisit it kasi ayaw naman natin, Ma'am Luchi, ay ipasang isang departamento tapos i-veto naman ng Malacanang. Kaya napakasayang naman ang pinaghirapan natin. We don't want to work that hard and come up with nothing because it will be vetoed. So we have to make sure that it's an acceptable, proposal to create a department of, not a department, but another agency, maybe similar to the CDC, Centers for Disease Control. In the United States, it's called FEMA.
Yun ang gusto ni President
Yes, it's called FEMA. Yes, we can create a FEMA. But the FEMA head is technically also secretary in the United States.
Yeah.
Yung head ng FEMA is also, I believe he's also called the secretary in the United States.
Senator.
So we can do that. Maybe semantics lang yan. It's just a matter of names and of course titles. Pero what is important, ang pinakamahalaga dyan ay tutukan natin itong lack of coordination, itong iba't ibang ahensya ng gobyerno. There must be a go-to agency for this and it has to be done soon.
Senator, nabanggit niyo po si House Speaker Martin Romualdez. So maiba ng konti, I do want to talk about Congress itself, the 19th Congress. Gaya ng nabanggit niyo, sabi niyo nga, ilan na, 20 na yung kanyo, yung na-attendan niyo na SONA, which is also to say that marami na kayo nakitang Kongreso, both at the lower house and at the upper house. You've seen majorities, you've seen super majorities, and so on. Is there anything peculiar or different about, you would say, about the character and the makeup of the 19th Congress? Or, alam niyo naman, iniisip ng mga tao, wala naman nagbabago dyan eh.
Hindi naman siguro, Roby. Actually, I think you'll see more work being done this time. We have a young Senate. Pag-usapan ko lang po yung Senado. Hindi ko na lang pong pag-usapan yung House dahil siyempre we have a respect for one another. And I'm just excited to work with Speaker Martin. Again, let me reiterate, napakasipag niya, napaka-amiable. He's also a problem solver. And I really think we're going to pass a lot of measures under his watch in the House of Representatives. Sa amin naman po, we're a relatively young Senate now. We don't have, our more senior members, yung tinatawag po natin mahaligi ng Senado, like Senator Frank Dillon, Senator Tito Soto, Senator Ping Lacson, they finished their last term. So we have a younger Senate now, and I'm not saying that they did not work as hard. Those three gentlemen that I mentioned are hardworking members of the Senate, napakagaling. But this time, I think may synergy din po kami lahat na yon, na nagkakaisa po kami, na ang dami nating problema coming out of the pandemic, and we have not come out from the pandemic yet. We're still in the pandemic. So, iisang gusto po namin layunin, na ayusin po itong problema, lalo-lalo sa ekonomiya, lalo-lalo sa pandemic response, at buksan na natin yung ating ekonomiya. Buti nga sinabi po ni Presidente, there will be no lockdown. We started it in the Senate. We stopped hybrid sessions altogether. We no longer do hybrid sessions. We all must, we must go to work. Sabi ko nga sa kanila, nakakaya. Yung mga anak ko pumapasok sa eskwelahan. They go to school. Tapos makikita nila yung tatay online. Diba? Pangit naman nun. Kaya sabi namin, let's stop all these lockdowns, go back to face-to-face sessions. And we made an exception though. We are amending the rules to allow our colleagues, pag natamaan ng COVID, that's the only exception. Pag sila po yung natamaan ng COVID, they can go online and they can work from home. But as soon as they're fine after 2 weeks, They have to come back to work. No more excuses. We don't want to have a situation na imbis na kunyari nang nagka-COVID tapos nasa Boracay pala. Hindi naman pwede yun. Kailangan magtrabaho po kami. And I'm the trabahador ng Senado. Remember that. That's my nickname. So guaranteed you will have sessions, you will have output. I think that will be a good output for our country in terms of legislation. But at the same time, we will still go through a fine-tooth comb, as I mentioned in my speech, if there's things that we need to, of course, watch out for, we will watch out for. If certain measures are overbearing or have an overreach, we will bring it back and make sure it does not
kasi Senator,
affect our people. If they're, so we're going to do that. Continue, Jan. Continue. We'll be continuing that. Robbie.
Kasi Senator, alam niyo naman.
And remain independent. We'll remain independent as well. Yes, we will continue to remain independent. That is a commitment and a tradition of the Senate. That's a time-bound tradition of the Senate.
Sige.
And we'll respect that.
Napuntiryan nyo yung isang character that alam nyo naman, that's the subtext to our question, di ba? Super majority, who's the fiscalizer here? But the other character, I want to take on what you said, no? It's a younger Senate. Extend na natin sa Kongreso. Let's assume na bumabata ang buong House of Representatives. We'd like to think that the younger policymakers are, the more progressive they can also be. But how progressive can they be given that one of the characteristics of our Congress has always been political dynasties? Will this generation, your generation in particular, you all come from long-established political families, will your generation, you think, be up to the task of this homework that every Congress has passed on? The Constitution mandates Congress to pass an anti-dynasty law. Can you finally do it?
Well, on a personal note, sabi ko nga, I am in full approval of the version of Senator J.V. Ejercito. Meron po siyang final anti-dynasty measure na kung saan isa lang po sa executive branch at isa po sa legislative branch. Ika nga, one member lang sa Kongreso or sa Senado and one member sa pagka-mayor or governor. Okay ako dun. But again, going back to this issue of dynasties. Some people argue and say that dynasties continue to proliferate because there's no measure. But I'll give you an example, and this is a painful example. My brother lost in Bukidnon running for governor. So, isn't that a democratic process? Hindi na hawak ng isang dinastiya ang probinsya. My father was the governor for 20 years. And my brother ran and he lost by 4,000 votes. We accepted it immediately. We congratulated the new governor, who is now the new governor of Bukidnon, Governor Roque. So it shows that there's democracy at work. There are dynasties that can be toppled because they may want new blood or for whatever reason. So that's sometimes my argument now, Robbie. So it doesn't mean that because you're a dynasty, mananatili ka dyan forever.
But just to be clear, are you saying hindi kailangan?
Di naman sa, ako as I said, depende sa proposal, Robbie, because there are what is a true democracy? A true democracy is you elect your leaders no matter how good they are or how bad they are. That is the option that you have. We are not China. We are not those countries that do not believe in an electoral process. Like, for example, the city of Hong Kong, I don't think they have any more an election. If they do have an election, they pretty much canceled out all the opposition through their new constitution. Tayo, we're a democracy. We pride ourselves to be one. And if you are a democracy, a true democracy, then we have to start acting like one. I think what we need for the electoral process to improve is to find a way to stop vote buying and vote selling. Yan ang pinakamalaking issue na yon, ladies and gentlemen. We have to find new ways of legislating that vote buying and vote selling has to be a more serious crime because it's getting, di ba, barangay elections is coming up. There's a debate whether we postpone it or not. Alam mo, ang daming pumupunta sa akin ng mga barangay officials, mga kapitan, mga barangay kagawads, different barangays, Metro Manila in the provinces. Sen, i-postpone na natin yan. Napakamahal ng eleksyon. Bibenta na namin yung bahay namin para manalo lang. Sabi ko, bakit? Grabe nang hingi ng tao sa amin. Libo-libo na. Dahil sa nakarang halalan, libo-libo po ang naibigay sa mga tao. Kaya,
But you're just
sabi ko,
postponing the pain.
OMG.
You're just postponing the expenses. Hindi naman yung ipupusa.
I agree on the barangay elections. I'm just talking about vote selling, Ma'am Ami. I'm not debating with you on the barangay elections. I'm neither here or there whether to postpone or not to postpone. My position is we have to find solution on vote selling and vote buying. Because now in the provinces, if your reporters do their job, they will tell you that families are selling. So, 5 kami sa pamilya namin. Open kami sa 25,000 na bayad para 5,000 each para maboto namin yung kandidato nyo. Ganyan na yun. Kagrabe itong sitwasyon sa eleksyon.
Yeah.
So if instead of looking at this dynasty issue, I think we should look at this issue on vote buying and vote selling and make it really a serious crime.
We need another session on that.
Indeed. Unfortunately, itong session na to, I have to bang the gavel and close this particular session. We'll have to open up another time. We do appreciate your time. Senate President Miguel Zubiri, maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you, sir.
Mabuhay po. Good evening all.
And we'll start up another conversation after the break. Keep it here on One News. Limpin pa, di ba? You're still watching the Chiefs on One News. Ako po si Roby Alampay. Kasama po natin Luchi Cruz-Valdes of News 5, Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, and joining us now, Mr. Joey Concepcion, founder of Go Negosyo and the lead for jobs and MSMEs in the newly formed Private Sector Advisory Council. Welcome back to the Chiefs, Mr. Concepcion.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Roby. Good evening, Luchi. Good evening, Ami.
Sir, let's bring you in on this conversation that, of course, we've been having for the past few days since the State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos. A lot of things there, of course, for the private sector in particular. Your thoughts, sir, on the SONA?
Well, it was a very good SONA address of the President, very clear. We have to go through. And what to me resonated quite well since we've been involved in this pandemic for the last 2 years now is the no lockdowns. No? And I think that is what the country needs. And we cannot afford lockdowns because currently we're entering a new tropical depression in our economy, which is rising prices because of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. So I guess the business sector is full of confidence and is ready to support the president in all of these efforts.
How do you feel about his programs for agriculture in particular, no? Since, yun na nga, sir, you call it a tropical depression that we're in, no? There's food security issues, inflation. Do you think that he was specific enough as far as his agricultural programs are concerned, and that really that a new round of land reform is in order? Is that really what it will take to turn us around?
Well, first of all, I agree that the president really will help in agriculture because we cannot do much about the Ukraine-Russian crisis. We don't know how long this thing will last. And you have seen the rising prices from a tropical depression. It can be a signal number 1 or number 2. And here in our country. So we have to prepare for this. Being self-sufficient in our own agri-produce is, to me, very important at this point in time. And how do you do that? In fact, we've been meeting with many of the different large entrepreneurs in the agri-business sector, no? And we've been talking to them about really bringing about a more inclusive agri-platform whereby both contract growers, contract farmers, together with the large integrators, will make sure that these farmers or contract growers make good money, no? And that's very important, an inclusive agribusiness. And so, Go Negosyo on its own is preparing to launch Kapatid Angat Lahat, no? Which is really nothing new, but we'd like to enhance it. It's really the value chain, no? Making our farmers more economically viable. And this is where the president is looking at all of these lands that are idle, is to put it in the hands of farmers who can at least not just work on a hectare of land, because what are the economies of scale there? Bigger tracts of land to those farmers who really deserve, no? Right now, many of the farmers put them in cooperatives and try to work together, but sometimes that is not as productive, depending on the head of the cooperative. So I think we want to turn our farmers into real entrepreneurs, but we have to make them viable.
Can you tell us more about the Private Advisory Council? Who are the members? And have you made any proposals that were forwarded to Malacanang?
Actually, the Private Advisory Council has just basically started. There has one group has already presented. In our case, which I'm handling, I'm the lead for the jobs. We have McKinsey on board. We are consulting the different business organizations and chambers, and we have some ideas on what we would like to recommend to the president. But in short, job generation is really generated by our MSMEs. So they contribute 62% of job generation. And that's why for the last 16 years, Go Negosyo has really been involved in this space. No? Now, the remaining of the balance of the 62%, that's generated by government and large corporations. No?
Well, the president said he wants the guide bill pushed in Congress to assist businesses that are critical to economic recovery. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's very important that all bills that will help MSMEs and especially attract foreign investors to our country should be a priority at this point in time. As we know that as we face this challenging scenario, and many of our MSMEs have just recovered or about to recover from the pandemic lockdowns. We have to get more money into their hands, especially working capital. Because, for example, like in flour, if for a bake shop or a bakery, the working capital would have doubled today because of the rising prices of wheat. No? And this is true for all. No? Even sari-sari store owners will have to double up on their working capital, so they'll have to borrow more money from the bank. And as we know, interest rates are starting to move up and will continue to move higher, no? as the world tries to stem down the inflation. So whatever support that our MSMEs can get, I think we should throw that in.
Sir,
Mr.
let me just ask you about the vaccines that have expired. No, we're talking 5.1 billion, and that's from the private sector. You said that the private sector has been appealing to the Health Technology Assessment Council, or HTAC, to be allowed to administer second boosters, pero walang nangyari, no? Ano po ang next steps nyo dyan? Paano na ngayon?
Well, no, well, we were just venting out our frustration, no? Since early this year in March. We've been calling for the approval, no? And we have seen in America that CDC has approved the vaccination, the second booster shots, no? For the first booster shot, walang problema. We followed what the CDC did, no? Give it to everyone. But for the second booster, that was limited only to 60 years and above, and 50 years with comorbidities, and we pushed for that. We should give it to the 50 years old, and for those, and follow what they did also the younger age, no, where they can take it with those who have comorbidities. And unfortunately, AstraZeneca and Moderna vaccines have expired in July 27. That was Moderna, and we also have what do you call this? Astra expiring this coming July 31.
Yeah.
So it's over, and we every 2 weeks. I mean, we were in the press. You've heard us. I've been always saying that we should move on and try to just follow CDC, because these vaccines are made in America, both Moderna and Pfizer. Anyway, Astra, they didn't allow Astra to be used for booster shots anymore. No, so. And that's what I couldn't understand. Now it's quite late. We've lost about 5 billion pesos. No, so that's a lot of money for the private sector to use. No?
Mr. Concepcion, one last question. Above the MSMEs, and as crucial as they are, President Bongbong Marcos also stressed and had a lot of things to say about the role that private sector will play in reviving the economy, particularly in investing in infrastructure. Walang pera ang gobyerno. He's counting on private sector money. PPPs got mentioned a lot, even for everything from infrastructure to energy and utilities. What's the footing of the private sector at this point to step up to the plate and to invest in these big-ticket items?
Well, I think provided the rules of the game are very clear, then I think you will see a lot of companies here in the Philippines and even abroad to really come to the Philippines and invest. No? And I agree that it's best to really have a public-private partnership with government as well. No? We've seen that in this pandemic when the private sector partnered with the government in securing these vaccines. So it does work. No? And I think the government has to be careful in leveraging the country too much. We have gone through this pandemic. We've spent so much money to be able to, save ourselves from COVID-19 successfully. Now we have a massive infrastructure build-up, and that has to continue. We can see that connectivity, especially for our agri-farmers, will really help. Farm to market roads are very important, railways, and all of this will bring about greater mobility, and the economy will surely benefit from all of this infrastructure development.
Okay, Mr. Concepcion, maraming salamat po. Mr. Joey Concepcion, of course,
sir,
is one of the conveners of the newly formed Private Sector Advisory Council. Now, we still do have some time. We will bring in one last guest for this evening, Dr. Maricar Limpin, immediate past president of the Philippine College of Physicians, joins to talk to us about the vape law. Dr. Limpin, welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, Doc.
Good evening to everyone.
Dr. Limpin, quickly, ano ba tong vape law na to? And ano bang, what is the national and the government mindset when it comes to itong vaping? Of course, people know what vaping is, but is that a tobacco product? Does that live in its own regime of regulation? And what does this law essentially say?
So itong vape products na ito, no? This is actually an electronic smoking device. So, and it contains nicotine, no? Many of them contains nicotine. Kahit na nga yung sinasabi nilang non-nicotine containing, studies have shown that it still contains nicotine and therefore can cause addiction. And it also contains exactly the same chemicals found in tobacco smoke. So yung smoke, makikita mo, contains all the chemicals, including cancer-causing agents. And therefore, there is always the risk for harm as far as health is concerned. Kaya itong vape bill na ito, tinututulan talaga namin because number one, it transfers the regulatory function from FDA to DTI. So it is actually making vaping as just a trade issue. It is not just a trade issue, it is a health issue. And therefore, dapat talaga FDA ang magre-regulate. It cannot be just DTI.
So what's your next move dahil nag-lapse into law na? Are you going to challenge it sa Supreme Court na yan naakyat? Are you preparing a challenge?
Yes, definitely we will continue the fight. No, we cannot just sit and stay idly. No, we have to challenge. We will challenge the legality of the process on how it was passed or it lapsed into law, and also we will challenge the constitutionality of this bill because the transfer of the regulatory function is a constitutional issue. Okay, and therefore that's actually what we are preparing when we go to the Supreme Court.
Okay, basic question. Why is the lobby so strong?
Definitely, we know how the industry works, no? So it's just the same. The tobacco industry and the vaping industry is one and the same. So whatever tactics we have seen with the tobacco industry, it is also the same tactics that are being employed by the vaping industry.
Okay.
So whatever we're gaining from the smoking, the law, diba? That taxes essentially smoking. Are you saying we're neutralizing that by allowing more kids to vape?
Yes, so basically, we have seen the prevalence of smoking going down in the country. But, the industry is preparing for eventually maybe losing the market as far as smoking is concerned. But they are trying to pave the way for another epidemic. So we have not really gotten rid of the tobacco epidemic, and now we are going into the vaping epidemic. And we know that there is really going to have vaping epidemic because the 13 to 15 years of age na Filipino children, we have already 14% of them is vaping, using the vape. So that's a big percentage already of vapers. It is even higher compared to the older ones, no? So the vaping prevalence, we are seeing it starting very early in the life of an individual.
And flavors, no, kasi, I don't know if that's if that's the added come on, no?
Yes.
Na may flavor yung mga vapes.
Yes, Luchi, no? Tandaan mo dito sa vape bill na ito, they even removed the restrictions on flavors. Kasi doon sa 11467, it was limited only to 2, tobacco and the menthol flavor. Dito, it allows already some flavors. Yes. As long as hindi daw enticing to the children. So, pero ang dami namang enticing to the children, no?
But
so, napakahirap Yes.
Dr. Limpin, I wanted to ask, I mean, beyond the flavors, something more basic you said kanina, may nicotine din to. And as we know, nicotine is really the one that hooks, that makes it addicting. Pero dun sa, ano ba yun, chemical, the substance itself, is nicotine an additive? Sinasadyang lagyan ng nicotine?
Yes, talagang sinasadyang lagyan ng nicotine yan.
Para maging
so,
addictive.
It's really part of the e-liquid, no? Part of the substance that are being included in the e-liquid.
Yung iba may CBD, di ba?
Merong
CBD.
yes, oo. That's the other thing, now that meron na rin tayong mga cannabis oil, no? So it's very easy now to include also cannabis in these electronic smoking devices. And that is why
As a substance.
actually, not just as a flavor, no, but as
component?
Yes, as a component. No? To add on to the addiction. Para mas maganda pa yung high na mararamdaman nung nagve-vape.
So it's a gateway it's a gateway as well. It behaves as a gateway.
Yes, Roby, no, the studies have actually shown that if you vape, it has a twofold increase likelihood that you will smoke cigarettes, fourfold increase in drinking alcohol, and fivefold increase in taking illegal drugs. So definitely it's a gateway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Dr. Maricar Limpin, sayang maiksing-maiksi lang to. We'll have to have you back and have an update as well on your challenge to the vape bill. But for now, maraming salamat po.
Thank you,
Thank you, Dr. Limpin.
Thank you and good night.
Night.
And that's it for the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed will keep the conversation going. Ako po si Roby Alampay.
I'm Mami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
And I'm Luchi Cruz-Valdes of News 5.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.